Hi, I'm Lisa Hayden with Community Focus on Washington County. Today, my guest is Leah Baines, who is the director of the Berry Farming Program at St. Catherine College.
That's right.
Welcome, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, I'm just delighted that you could come because, we need to know more about this program. And I had the opportunity a week or so ago to attend the New Pioneers for a Sustainable Future, their annual dessert dinner. Anyway, that's all. Dessert
the empty bowls.
reception.
Oh, the reception, right.
Yes. And so I know you were there speaking at that. So, and of course, prior to that, I saw you at the Empty Bowls.
Which is such a great event.
Yeah. Especially when I get to take home my own little bowl that someone has made. Handcrafted.
That's right.
That's pretty impressive. So, anyway, but I'm excited to hear about this program. And of course, we know that this is named after Wendell Berry.
That's right.
So I'm just going to let you take it from there and fill us in.
Sure. So the Berry Farming Program at St. Catherine College is now in its third year of offering classes, and in fact we will have our first cohort of students graduating in May. We'll have 6 students who are graduating, and so we're very, very proud of that group of students, and we think that they really embody what we stand for at St. Catherine and certainly in the Berry Farming Program. As you mentioned, the program is named for Wendell Berry, who is a Kentucky writer and farmer. He is nationally and internationally known for advocating for small rural communities and for small family farms. Other people in our area will know the Berry family in relationship to the Burley Tobacco Cooperative, because Wendell's father actually helped to draft that legislation and was the president of the Burley Tobacco Cooperative for many, many years, as was Wendell's brother John Berry. So the Berry family has a long legacy of working for agriculture in the state of Kentucky, and Wendell is probably the most well-known public figure at the national level in terms of really being a champion for small family farmers and for advocating for good land stewardship. So that's the kind of legacy that the curriculum in our program is carrying out, and we're training our students, educating our students not only in natural farming techniques and practices, but also how to really revitalize community-based food systems. That means food systems that are really anchored in a specific community, as opposed to food systems as we have them now, which are from far-flung locations, whether those are from California or Florida or even further afield in Australia and South America. So we're trying to revitalize the farming community through a local economy.
Yeah. Well, that is great. And of course, on this program, I have several times interviewed farmers, but as you well know, the trend has become through the years into, the small farmer couldn't support himself.
That's right.
So, some of the small farmers I know, they work outside, off of the farm.
That's right.
At the factory,
Right.
and come home and farm at night.
That's right.
And on weekends. So we have seen this trend, and I've interviewed several big farmers as well that have gone on to, they're leasing farmland
Right.
from other people,
Right.
using big equipment and selling to big markets, and of course using all the high-tech fertilizers and bug control
Right.
things. So, you know, how do you all deal with that
Yeah.
type of thing?
So one of the first things that we really like to emphasize in our classes is that we are not creating an us against them mentality, because we know that farmers who farm in those ways do so because that's the way that the market is structured. We know that they are very concerned about the health of their land. They're very concerned about the health of their communities. And until we have a really viable marketplace set up that will allow farmers to reliably and consistently and stably farm for smaller scale local markets, then we have a really tough road ahead of us. So one of the things that we're doing with our program is not only to teach our students about some of the concepts of small-scale marketing and how to change that system, but we're also teaching them about that conventional system so that they understand how it works to the extent that we can. So, for instance, we have what we call a Business of Sustainable Agriculture class, and when we say sustainable agriculture, we mean it in it's a deceptively simple way of saying that we want to meet the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, you know, we're trying to think about how we can sustain land use in healthy, natural, ecology-based ways that will allow for future generations to provide for themselves. So when I say sustainable, that's what we're talking about. So this Business of Sustainable Agriculture class is one that's actually taught by Jonathan Shepard. He's an extension specialist through the UK Extension Agency. His background is agricultural economics. He works with farmers across the state on all the scales of farming, from very small entrepreneurial operations through mid-size diversified operations. Maybe they have a combination of small-scale local market farming, and then they also have some commodity production, and also to the larger scales as well. As you mentioned, a lot of the farmers in Kentucky are leasing more and more acreage so that they are expanding their economic potential. So the teacher of our class is able to talk with our students about all of those different types of farming so that our students understand what the state of the market is, and also to try to think creatively about how to start shifting that market so that, as we say, so that we make it, I recognize that when I say what I'm about to say, I recognize is a very idealistic aspiration, a dream, but you got to have a dream in order to change things. So that one of the things that we really have to change in agriculture is to make it so that farmers are price makers, not price takers. And with the Burley system, and we're not necessarily we're not farming tobacco at St. Catherine College. That is something that we are. It's a tradition in Kentucky that we're very concerned about, and we talk about the role of tobacco production in the state. But when we look at the Burley Tobacco Cooperative System, we see that it's one that actually did a great job. It was a very, very effective program for allowing farmers as a collective to establish a reliable price for their tobacco. And until that system started to shift, and there's a big, we could go into the history of why it shifted, but I'll simplify it just to say that that even that industry is making it much more difficult without that cooperative structure and without some of the legislative mechanisms and policies put in place to allow farmers to negotiate for prices, it's you know, the place that tobacco farmers find themselves in now is the similar kind of circumstance that our corn and soybean and cattle producers also find themselves in. The prices they fluctuate. They may be good one year and not so great the next. But ultimately, farmers are not in a position to negotiate those prices, and our students are trying to figure out how to change that. They know it's hard.
Yeah.
They are also very enthusiastic and smart and willing to do hard work because they believe in agriculture and they believe in small rural communities.
And so with that, being able to set a market price,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess some of that in the past has occurred with price supports and
Right,
things of that
exactly.
nature. So if they're able to do that, is their ultimate goal, as you said, to be able to not only support themselves on the farm, grow their own food, but also to have a market to be able to sell that food and be self-supportive. Is that
Absolutely.
the ultimate
Yeah, that's
goal?
absolutely the vision. And you know, a lot of times when we talk about this with people, they kind of shake their heads and say, "You don't understand how difficult that dream is."
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, we have conversations about this. I mean, you know, I spend a lot of time with my students, not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom, and this is foremost in their minds is figuring out how to tackle such a big system, and to do it in a way that works with the people who are already farming, as opposed to, you know, what often happens with when you start talking about sustainable agriculture, you start talking about small scale production systems, is people just think, well, this is you know, it's us versus them, and that's really it's a sad way to think about it, number one, and it's also it's a false way to think about it, because people who are interested in the land, people who are interested in feeding other people, they better band together and try to figure out how to do this work collectively.
Well, and I think more and more people, because, you know, when we do talk about the big farmer and the things that they're producing, and the chemicals and the things that, you know, there seems to me to be a whole lot more concern among people today about the effects that the chemicals and things that you're using on your farm products is causing.
Right.
You know, we're more and more cancer and things of that nature. I think people are beginning to feel like it's, I mean, I talk to people every day and they just say, well, I think it's the food we're eating, and things like that. So I don't know, but, you know, needless to say, I would think that in a program, in a program like yours, you're using natural products that don't have chemicals. Is that correct?
Right. So one of the things that we're teaching our students is that sustainability happens on a spectrum, that there are going to be farm operations that really depend upon synthetic chemicals, whether that's fertilizers, pesticides, whatever, herbicides, that sort of thing. But one of the things that we talk about is trying, which is what most extension crop agents are doing with farmers as well, is to try to minimize that and to try to create agricultural systems that are less and less dependent upon those kinds of synthetic inputs. What we do in our classes is we train our students in methods, practical methods for fertilizing soil, for choosing crop varieties that are well adapted to our ecosystem here, that are well adapted to our land and climate and region, so that you have less pressure from the different varieties of pests, for instance. We're training them to think about how nature functions, and as much as they possibly can, and as hard as a task as this is, as much as they possibly can, to try to imitate the things that they see happening in nature. To think about how the lay of the land affects a water flow, for instance, and how that's going to impact irrigation patterns, or how it's going to impact erosion patterns. So, we are very concerned about decreasing and eventually eliminating the need for those kinds of synthetic chemicals, because we have grave concerns about the health effects of those chemicals, not only on the consumers but also on the farm workers. And it's a difficult scenario because the predominant scientific community is very hesitant, and I think there are reasons for that hesitancy, but they're very hesitant to draw direct links between some of the organophosphates that are being used in agriculture and detrimental human health effects, cancer, for instance. So the studies that I look at often say, that the results are highly suggestive that there's a relationship between certain types of cancer, for instance, and the chemicals that are being used in agricultural production, but they won't unequivocally say that there's this link. So it's a difficult situation when you don't have the scientific community really declaring that openly.
Yeah. Well, look how long it's taken to establish that there actually is climate change.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
golly, we've been talking about that for I don't know how
Since
many
70s.
years. Yeah.
Right.
So-
60s and 70s.
And
yeah.
I think, and now they're saying, the scientists have confirmed,
Over
and
and
there's
again.
still naysayers. So,
Sure,
you
sure.
know.
Right.
But
Well, with that, we go with the scientific evidence. That's 99.9% of scientists say that global climate change, human-induced global climate change, is real, and that's the premise that we work on. So, so that, these are the kinds of discussions that we have in our classes. We also think about, my background is not in science. I have a colleague who, Dr. Sean Lucas, who is the coordinator for our the scientific thread of our program, and I represent the cultural background. My background is in the humanities. I've studied the culture of agricultural communities. We call it agrarianism. We have classes that, like for instance, this semester I'm teaching a course that's essentially an agricultural history course. So we start from the very beginnings of agriculture and we take it all the way up through the 21st century and think about how humans first started farming, gardening and farming, and then how we have learned not only about different technological innovations, but how we've learned about soil systems and how we've learned about crop rotations and that sort of thing. And at the same time, we think about how these changes in agriculture affected the societies in which those changes occurred. So we're really interested in the relationship, what we see as an inextricable relationship, one that you can't talk about one without talking about the other, in terms of the effects of agriculture on society and vice versa. So those are, that's another component to our program, so that our students get the scientific side and the cultural side. They get the economic side. We have one of the concentrations that students can select in our degree. We have 2 degree programs. One is called community leadership. So students are learning about policy. They're learning about community education. They're learning how to be the leaders in our communities who will help us transition to healthier ways of living and eating.
And the other program, the community leadership is one, and the other program is?
We actually have 4.
Okay.
One is so community leadership.
Now is that a master's degree program or a bachelor's?
Ours is a bachelor's degree program, but
Okay.
there is a community leadership master's program at St. Catherine. Community and regional studies, community and regional leadership rather, is the master's program level. It's headed up by Mr. Jim Silliman. He's an excellent professor. He is really doing such good work in that master's program, and he actually teaches a number of courses for the students in our community, our undergraduate community leadership program as well. So for instance, I have students in a small towns class right now, so they're learning all about how small towns function, what the from the bureaucratic level to the social level. So the community leadership degree is in our Bachelor of Arts. And we also have an environmental arts and humanities component in that Bachelor of Arts as well that students can concentrate in. And we are very excited to be working with the Fine Arts Department at St. Catherine to really ramp up that environmental arts and humanities concentration through an emphasis on a fiber arts program that we're going to be starting. I have a student who is working, he's using his senior project. Mike Lewis is my student. He's using his senior project to help us establish a fiber arts program. We just got a huge grant. We just got a huge grant. He just told me.
Great.
He just told me about it today. That is going to help us to establish that program. Got a grant for. He got it. I didn't get it. He got it. The students are taking the lead on these projects, and so that's one of the things that people need to really keep their eyes peeled for, is some developments in establishing that fiber arts program. In our Bachelor of Science program, we have an agroecology concentration, and all that means is that we're using ecology, or nature's processes, as a way to inform agricultural practice. So agroecology. That's for people who know that they want to be farmers, or they want to be involved in production in some way, shape, or form. We have some students who, for instance, our student Shelby Floyd grew up on a farm in LaRue County, and when he graduates, one of his plans is to put part of that farm, which is a saddlebred farm right now, but to put part of that farm into probably some small-scale industrial hemp production. I think that's what his plan is. So going back to the farm that he grew up on. I have another student, Patty Moyer, really, really fascinating young woman, who's actually from New York State. She came down here after she read Wendell Berry's work and was completely changed her life. She was inspired. She moved from New York State down to Kentucky. I think she's very interested in working with nonprofit community organizations in community-based, like community gardens, teaching, and that sort of thing. So people who know they're going to be involved in some kind of food or fiber production. And the other concentration is plant and soil stewardship. At other colleges, it's called plant and soil science. It's it's the hard natural sciences, chemistry, biology, ecology, soil ecology, and soil science classes. And these are for people who know that they either want to do consultation, like with Soil Conservation Service, that sort of consultation with farmers, or they want to work in research labs in plant and soil science. So we've got a wide variety.
Really? Yes, indeed.
Yeah, because we've got to address all of those categories in order to start shifting the system so that it empowers farmers, and that's our idea.
And I believe, do you have some students from other countries?
We do. Yeah.
And Can you elaborate on that a little
Sure.
bit? Are they going home and create their farms?
Yeah.
Farm.
Yeah, so we have 20 students altogether in our program. Well, we've added a few recently, so about 20 to 25 students. And 5 of those are international students. We have one who's from Burkina Faso in Western Africa, another is from Tanzania in Eastern Africa, another from India, Nepal, and then one from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So 3 from Africa, 2 from the Indian subcontinent. And these students are here with the understanding that they will take what they learn back home to their home communities. For some of them, that will be farming, and for others, that will be more like the community leadership and work. I have Ruth Kayembe from the Congo is very, very interested in the law. So she's planning to go to law school and to start working on agricultural policy and agricultural law in the Congo, and to use that to empower the farmers in the Democratic Republic. She's terribly, terribly concerned about the hunger problems in her home country, and she wants to work at it from a kind of top tier level. And then others are, I have a student from Tanzania who's going to be essentially establishing a kind of, they don't have extension service in Tanzania the same way that we do. So they have some, but he's going to create a kind of alternative extension agency type service for farmers in communities to help them understand what the commodity prices are for the crops that they grow. Farmers in Tanzania get ripped off all the time. They get completely lowballed on their prices because they don't know what the actual commodity market price is. So, there are different ways in which they'll be serving their communities. But now they have become very deeply embedded in our community and very committed to really living here and making this their kind of home place while they're here.
This is quite a unique program, isn't it, Leah? Does anyone in the rest of the country have any school have anything like this? I mean, this seems pretty unique.
It is unique. There are other good programs out there, that, some of which I drew from when I was creating the curriculum and designing the ideas for the program. But we think that one of the things that really makes us unique is our emphasis on the idea of what we call homecoming. And what we mean by that is the idea of especially making it possible for young people to return to their home communities. And that's especially important for students who are from rural communities, because as you know, it is so difficult for young people who if they've gone off to college someplace else, it's difficult for them to come back to smaller rural communities and small towns because of lack of employment opportunities, a lack of community of people their own age. I mean, there are lots of impediments, and we want to try to transform that so it's possible for young people to come home and to really dig into those home places. And for those who can't come home, I mean, there are lots of reasons why people can't go back to their home communities. But wherever they end up, that they dig in and they make their homes in the places where they live instead of just being a visitor there.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that's very unique about our program, is that commitment to place and a commitment to community.
Maybe I can get my children back home.
I've
been
work
wanting
on
to come
that.
down and take some of those classes anyway, because my father-in-law he puts usually puts a garden in up at my house, and he puts up 2, one with my brother-in-laws, just and sister-in-laws. But this year he's not going to farm at my house.
Oh, really?
And put his garden in at my and so but I really enjoy a garden.
Well,
and I might be able, maybe I can persuade my children to come home and they can just live here and take care of the garden.
Well, you know, in small communities, there's a lot of good work that needs to be done, and we need people who have lived in other places and who have a broad set of experiences to come back and share that with their home communities. And I'm seeing, I live in Danville, just down the road, and I see it happening. And I know that it's happening here in Springfield as well, and we need to really encourage that so that, you know, the more young people who are here, the more likely we'll be to get more young people here.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I'm really excited about the program, and I do have to comment too that I think you had Prince Charles visit as well, didn't you? Or was that?
He was in Louisville for the Health and Harmony Initiative conference last spring, and our partnering organization is the Berry Center, which is in Newcastle over in Henry County. And the berry farming program and the Berry Center had a table at this conference, and when Prince Charles came through to see some of the exhibits, the organizer, which is Christy Lee Brown, made sure that he stopped at our display to learn about our program and about the Berry Center, because he's he and Wendell Berry have been longtime correspondents and colleagues, and he's a big admirer of Wendell's work. And so one of my students, Shelby Floyd, actually, we all got to meet him, but I said, Shelby, this is not about me. You're the student. You're the one who needs to tell them about our program. And I was just so impressed by his ability to really encapsulate in a very short amount of time how important our program is, not only for St. Catherine, but for our community and for Kentucky. So yeah, we got to meet the Prince. I never had that ambition in my life, but it happened, and I was very happy.
Well, I like the fact that he is interested in sustainability.
That's right.
and natural production of food, because we all know that's really important, and to get that kind of national attention is, and I'm sure you've had other attention from other countries.
Yeah. And you know, I was thinking too that the people who are viewing this program might be interested in looking at a recent PBS special that was done on our program. And so it's about a 10-15 minute segment that's on the Religion and Ethics News Weekly, and they just did a great job of portraying what our program is all about, and there's some really good interviews with our students. So I highly encourage people to check that out. It's a very nicely done production. So. And
what was the name of it?
It's called Religion and Ethics News Weekly. And if they are able to just search online, you can go to Religion and Ethics News Weekly's webpage, and then there's a search bar. You can just do Berry Farming Program or St. Catherine College, and they'll be able to access that.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Leah. This is just so interesting and exciting, and I'm happy for St. Catherine, and I know that you just do a tremendous job.
Thank you.
And the president, I know, Cindy Nattinger, is very committed and supportive of the program.
Oh yeah, she's our biggest advocate. She's part of the reason that we have a campus farm now, and I'm very, very pleased with her commitment and interest in this work. So.
Yes, I want to get down and see the campus farm.
Yeah, come on out. I'll be happy.
And I want to invite other people to.
Yeah, we've got students who'll be happy to take you around. We've got our spring crops that have just gone in, and they're going to be supplying the campus cafeteria. So.
Great.
We're thrilled.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'll get to sample that. Well, thanks again for being on here today, Leah.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Look forward to seeing you.
Okay. All right. Take care.